So at this time, we'll call to order the Port Authority for the City of St. Louis for its regularly scheduled meeting held on January 11, 2024. Happy New Year. May we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Kay,
Aye.
Commissioner Seymour,
Aye.
Commissioner Mason,
Here.
Chair McBride.
I'm present. We'll move on to approval of the minutes for the meeting held on December 14, 2023. Is there a motion to approve?
I make the motion.
Is there a
Second.
second? Properly moved and seconded. May we have a roll call vote, please?
I'm sorry, who was it seconded by?
Commissioner Kay.
Okay.
Okay. Commissioner Kay,
Aye.
Commissioner Seymour,
Aye.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Chair McBride.
Aye. We'll take up resolution 24 PT01 relating to election of officers for 2024. Mr. Morrow, are you going to walk us through that?
Yeah. Okay.
Sure.
And it looks like Commissioner Williams is here as well. We're gonna move her to a panelist. All right.
Is Chris 202? Is that Chris Johnson? Is 202 is the Washington DC area code?
Jackie, do you know?
Yes.
Okay, that's fine.
Yes, sir.
202. What's the number? 306 0231. That's Chris Johnson. That's our lobbyist, so we're gonna move him over as well.
Okay.
So we are starting off the new year with the most exciting resolution. This is our administrative responsibility. The first meeting of the calendar year under the Port Authority's bylaws, the Port Commission has to elect its slate of officers to serve for the year. So the proposed slate is below. The 4 officer positions on the Port Commission are chair, vice chair, secretary, and treasurer. All positions except for the secretary must be filled by a sitting commissioner. So the slate was provided to the commission previously, and I am available to answer any questions if anyone has any.
Very good. How does this look to the commissioners? I know Commissioner Miller is not present at this particular meeting, but she's been handed the package well in advance if she had an objection. Any comment or discussion?
No.
Hearing none, then I'd entertain a motion to approve resolution 24 PT01, the slate of officers reflected thereof.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and second. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Kay,
Aye.
Commissioner Seymour,
Aye.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Chair McBride.
Aye, and I believe we have Commissioner Williams.
And Commissioner Williams.
Aye.
And the motion passes and the resolution is approved. We'll take up resolution 24 PT2 relating to use of state funds to issue RFP for rail improvements. Susan, you're going to walk us through that, please.
Yes, good morning. The city's municipal river terminal is operated by SCF Lewis and Clark Terminals. And in the last few years, they've been seriously expanding their rail capacity there. So if you look at the picture, you can see some conveying equipment kind of in the center of the picture that we use state and grants
And there's
for.
right now, there's no picture, Susan, up on the shared screen. It'll be only through
I'm
a
sorry,
package.
it's in your packet.
Mhm.
Sorry. Okay, so anyway, there's existing rail that SCF is, and they want to expand it further. So this will extend the track that's in the yard a little further to the north as well as to the south. So the total project value based on our design, the rail engineers cost estimate is it's a little over $1 million. And to pay for it, we have a little over 665,000 in a state grant. SCF would provide in-kind services and a match, and we have some ARPA funds that would round out the funding. So we have all the funding in hand. There's no city money involved. So we are requesting approval to spend state grant, the ARPA grant, and to then go out for an RFP for the two pieces of track that will be added. And when the bid comes in, or when the bid is selected, the most responsive, lowest bid is selected, we'll bring it back to the Port Commission for approval for the construction of the track.
Okay. And you said there are two pieces of track contemplated in this resolution?
Yes, there's existing track that's kind of in the center of the yard, and they would like to extend the track further north and further south, still within the yard, to get more rail goods in there. They're really expanding their tonnage there. Their tonnage, the tonnage royalty, we get 25 cents a ton. That tonnage royalty has gone from about 74,000 a few years ago, right when we started the rail improvements. And it's now, the tonnage royalty is now up to 176,000. So it benefits them as well as us.
Now, Susan, does it add, how much does it add to the length of the track? Is that about a mile? Did I read it correctly?
The project will add 450 feet to the north, and it will of track, and it will add 500 feet to the south. The current facility itself, the municipal river terminal, is 4,300 feet long. So the more track we can get in there, the closer we get to a longer unit train length, which is
Oh, okay.
over a mile.
So, all right.
So,
So
is that,
1,000 feet.
are you extending the track to make a connection? I'm just trying to understand why they're extending the track.
For both reasons, they want to extend it because then they can have more cars sitting next to the dock, and those conveyors can move more goods more rapidly. They also have the lease to the south, which has rail, and so they're pushing it all the way to the south to connect to that Tyler Street grain facility. Eventually, there's a build grant that's going to extend outside of the municipal river terminal yard all the way to whoever they're, I think it's the BN up there. So there's more rail to come, but at the moment, that's what this project is.
Thank you.
Sure.
Does it go beyond when you say their yard, you mean their lease set? It doesn't affect any of our other leases in a positive way yet?
At
Susan,
this-
before you answer that, can we go ahead and throw that up on the screen? So that everybody's on the same page,
Give it up on the screen.
literally and figuratively.
I mean,
It is on page 10 of our,
Yeah, it is.
okay.
Does that answer, I mean, is that enough for you, Commissioner Kay, or is it easier if they throw up the visual?
The core project. The adjacent leasehold to the south, they butt up against each other, and so we have control of that property. The future rail will go outside of the current municipal river terminal footprint, but it will be on city property. So that's a future project. This current project is all within the leasehold, the municipal river operator leasehold.
We can't do the future project without this one,
Right, and
right?
but still, this project, even if we didn't do the future, this project is valuable because they can get
Yes,
rail cars and
I'm just saying it actually benefits us for the future because we're connecting to the future project.
And the present operation becomes more productive, I suppose, huh? That's what.
Yeah,
it is.
their tonnage is going up,
Yeah.
so that's good for us and them and the city.
And Commissioner Seymour, that it becomes more productive for a few reasons. One of which is that we get closer and closer to what's called the unit train, which is a term in the rail industry, which is a train that's a mile in length. And then they can load and unload that entire train much more efficiently. So that's the idea, is to get to that point, and we've been targeting that for some
Unit
years
what?
now.
What was it? I'm
Unit-
sorry.
Unit train. Is that
Unit
correct,
train.
Susan Taylor?
Yeah, the railroad, is more efficient for the.
That's good to know. I'm just learning this stuff. Okay.
And plus, they want you to turn the train in 18 hours or less. So if you have to break up the train to move one car here and one car there, it takes longer. Whereas if all the cars are right there, you can get loaded and unloaded, or vice versa, in their 18 hours, which is their goal.
Makes sense. Makes
Um,
sense.
Susan, your audio is breaking up, going in and out. It's not doing it a lot, but it is. I just wanted to make you aware of that.
Okay, thank you.
And Alderman Cone, we're on resolution 02 relating to extension of the SCF rail at the municipal terminal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions on that resolution? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve resolution 24 PT02.
Make
so
the
moved.
motion. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
So moved.
Second,
Moved and seconded. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Wait, I'm confused. Did Commissioner Seymour,
Aye.
Commissioner Mason moved.
Yep. we'll do
Oh.
Mason and K.
Yeah.
Can we use previous roll call?
We may not.
No.
Oh, that's right. More people can. Sorry.
No problem.
Commissioner Cone,
Aye.
Commissioner Williams? Aye. Commissioner Kay,
Aye.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Chair McBride.
Aye. The motion passes and the resolution is approved. All right, we'll take up resolution 24 PT03 relating to amendment of the agreement between the Port Authority and Design 9. Susan, can you walk us through that, please?
Yes, Design 9 has been our rail engineer for all these rail upgrades at the Municipal River Terminal. So they're very familiar with what's going on there, and it was their contract says to help with the rail expansion. And so this is really kind of phase 4 of the ongoing rail expansion that we started a few years ago. So the motion before you is we're asking for approval to add to their contract to do this project. So they would do the plans and specs, and they would manage the construction. And the cost for that would be covered by the $665,000 in capital improvement state grant funds that we have. Engineering is an eligible expense, and then SCF, or the operator, would pay the 20% match. So we would have no city money involved, and Design 9 would do the plans and specs and the construction management for us.
Very good. Anytime we can increase scope without any money from the city, that's outstanding. Any questions for Susan on this resolution?
So the dollar amount is what, $35,000 to add
Yes,
to this? Okay, and 700. Now, I have one question. At some point in the amendment number 5 in section 3, it says the total amount involving D9 was $158,028. And then within the PT, the resolution, it says the new contract value will be $178.27. Do you see that?
yeah, I do. Do you have the page that she has that has the dollar amounts?
Yeah, I mean, that might just be a addition error that we can reconcile.
Oh,
But-
that just caught my eye.
Yeah, the amount of the amendment is going to be $35,768.
Okay, all right.
But good catch. We'll check our arithmetic, but the scope of work, the cost estimate has the engineering, the 2 line items for the engineering. So the The south part of the project is 24,000 and the plus, and the north part is 10,000, almost 11. So the 36 is based
Is
on the,
correct.
okay. But we'll check our math. Thank you for that.
No,
Any other questions on this resolution? Hearing none, I entertain a motion to approve resolution 24 PT 3.
So moved.
I second it.
Moved by Commissioner
Previous role.
Mason, second by Commissioner Seymour. Been a request for previous role. Is there any objection to that request? Hearing none, the motion passes and the resolution is approved. All right, we're going to take up resolution PT or 24 PT 4. And if I scroll down my screen, that relates to the authorization to issue demolition requests for South Riverfront Development Project. Susan, can you walk us through that, please?
Yes, the South Riverfront redevelopment project comprises land that's currently occupied by the city's South Refuse Department. And ultimately, over the next few years, the goal is to relocate some of the buildings and the functions there to a different site and to clear the site for riverfront commerce. So the site is bounded on the east by the river and on the west by an active Union Pacific, their main line. So this is the first phase of that project. There's a 71-year-old brick incinerator on that property. It has 2 smokestacks and it has an associated 4- and 7-story building through which garbage was moved and incinerated. I think there's 7 or 8 furnaces in there, gas-fired furnaces. And so phase 1 is to take down the 2 stacks. The building is 71 years old. It's brick. It's been abandoned for a long time. Bethany, I don't know if you know how long, but for decades. And so it's not being maintained. So there's this brick structure that's right next door to a Kinder Morgan tank farm that has petroleum in it, not to mention the people on the site itself and the rail. And so we'd like to, where this resolution is requesting approval to go out for bids to take down that incinerator, those stacks, the 2 stacks. And to pay for it, we have a state grant, a $640,000 state grant, capital improvement grant, and we have matching money from our ARPA grant for this project. So we have the financing in hand. There's no city money involved in taking down this in stacks, smokestacks.
Very good. Are there any questions for Susan on this resolution?
I have a
Susan,
question. Didn't we have this before the board once before? I remember there was some talk about removing some incinerators and then there was a little bit of discussion about that. Is this a new proposal or is this an addendum to one that we've already discussed?
No, the demolition is new. We've had a number of board bills come up about the project. The engineer, we hired an engineer to do the work. And so that particular engineer has done the environmental assessment, has done the, per their contract, and has done, and will do the construction management, and one of their sub-consultants will do the air monitoring, you know, when all the dust is flying, when the bricks come down.
But is this the same project or is this something different?
Well, it's the
Same
same,
project.
it's the
Okay.
same project, same overall project, yes.
We're
Gotcha.
just contracting out different pieces of it so that this can be safely taken down and removed. Commissioner Seymour, I believe you had raised your hand as well.
yes, I have a question. It's kind of more of a general question because I hear the same dollar amounts being mentioned as far as the state funding is concerned and ARPA funds are concerned. Is that the same dollar amount which is going to address different resolutions here, or is there like funding just dedicated for demolition of the smokestack?
We have two grants. The 665,000 is a different grant that was for the rail at the MRT and Municipal River Terminal. And then we have a different state grant, 640,000 towards this particular project.
Oh,
So that's a separate grant. The
Well,
numbers
that's
are
good.
similar.
I kept thinking they're going to run out of money.
No.
Well,
I
for
hope-
all these projects coming. Okay, good. That's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions on this resolution? Hearing none and seeing no hands raised, I'll entertain a motion to approve resolution PT 24 PT 04.
So moved.
Second.
Probably moved and seconded. Is there a request for previous roll?
Objection to previous roll.
Very good. It's been probably moved and seconded. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Cone,
Present.
Commissioner Williams,
Aye.
Commissioner Kay,
Aye.
Commissioner Seymour,
Aye.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Chair McBride.
Aye. And the resolution passes with 5 voting aye and 1 voting present. We're going to take up resolution 24 PT 05 for the BPS approval of a permit for American River Transportation. Susan?
Yes, this involves a lease that we have for a big warehouse immediately, actually south of the South Refuse Division. And the warehouse originally was built within the city limits 20+ years ago, 25 years ago. And then a few years after it was originally built, an annex was constructed, and a corner of the annex is not on city property. And so the tenant negotiated deals on its own with the company immediately south, which is ADM. And so we have a building that we own that is not on our property. And we have ADM parking their cars on our property. So this was not ideal. And so we've gone to ADM and we are proposing to swap out the 2 parcels so that whereby the city would gain the property that is currently under the corner of the annex that we don't own, and we would give ADM the property under their current parking lot. So while we're negotiating this, we're very close to concluding this. Well, we have concluded, right? So now it's in the ordinance process?
No, we're already past that.
Oh, we're past that.
This.
But it's not fun. And James is gonna take it from here.
I might be able to add a bit of context. So Susan laid the factual groundwork. We already have negotiated the swap of city property that's been approved by ordinance. We've negotiated the lease for the warehouse that's been approved by ordinance. All the instruments are currently pending signatures by the city. They've already been signed by the other parties. This resolution is simply a stopgap to allow ARTCO to continue using city property as a parking lot until the deeds are fully executed and recorded.
And what were the dimensions of the 2 parcels that were swapped? Do you have that information?
Yeah, I think each one is triangular, and I think the larger one was about 27,000 square feet that we are acquiring. And the smaller one is about 13,000 square feet that we are relinquishing. Is that right? That's about right.
Yeah.
There's in your packet, Exhibit A shows the annex and the 2 parcels, the 2 triangular parcels.
Yeah.
So page 3 of your packet, of your resolution.
And has American River Transportation, ARTCO, been a good tenant? Are they current on all their lease payments?
Well, we didn't have the lease with them. The prior tenant had a license for them to use it. This was all not done with Port Authority approval. I don't know what their terms were, but they keep the parking lot clean. That's about all I can tell you. But
Right.
we don't have a lease with them. Like I said, the past tenant kind of went rogue.
Okay. Well, I mean, we have the right to approve any sublessees under state statute, correct?
Yes, we do, but that did not happen
Okay.
25 years ago or 23 years ago.
Wow.
Well, that seems to be going on for quite a long time. I mean, we can take action to
Well, we did.
get this.
We realized this a few years ago when we were talking to the tenant in the warehouse because their lease was coming due. And so we've addressed this. We hired surveyors, we got the land surveyed. We've talked to Artco/ADM. And so this should fix that so that now ADM/Artco is the in-house barge company for Archer Daniels Midland. So this should fix this. Artco will be on their property and the annex to this building will be on city property. And it will be it's part of the lease going forward.
Okay, and I appreciate fixing the one issue. The second issue is, do we have a lease in which Artco is a signatory to?
Not here, no.
Okay. I'd like to put that on a to-do list for the port. I don't see why we don't know what the terms are. That's not contemplated in our lease with the licensee or the licensor, excuse me, and nor is it permitted under state statute. So if we have a belief that the lessee is leasing out for a greater amount, then I'd like to understand what that looks like and renegotiate that lease if necessary.
Go ahead.
So that whole prior contraption, the prior lessee of the warehouse executed a license to let Artco, or execute a license so that it could let Artco use city property as a parking lot, and executed a lease agreement with Artco so that it could extend the warehouse over onto Artco's land. That whole contraption has evaporated once the prior lease expired, and that was in later December 2023. So we are in the process of finalizing the deed transfer so that the city owns the entirety of the warehouse real estate and Artco owns the entirety of the parking lot real estate. So we don't have a lease with Artco for this location because the city will ultimately own all of the necessary real estate to fully occupy the warehouse.
Okay, so you're saying a different way, you're saying that we cannot execute a lease for the property because we don't own all the property that's being leased as of today because the deeds have yet to be recorded. That'd be another way of saying it.
Correct. And we have
Okay.
we have an agreement with Artco to allow the city to permit the warehouse operator to use the warehouse. That has already been executed. The lease agreement and the deeds will be executed contemporaneously by the city.
All right, and I assume we'll see the terms of those leases in the next few meetings. Would that be correct?
The lease has already been approved by the Port Commission and has been passed out as an ordinance. So
Oh, it
this,
has.
we're at the very back end of everything and just waiting for the city to complete its signature circuit.
Okay. All right, I guess when I came from is previously, I didn't appreciate the nuances of this other acquisition and swap. All right. Are there any other questions from any of the other commissioners on resolution 24 PT 5? Hopefully I didn't thoroughly muddy it up. Seeing no other questions, I will entertain a motion to approve resolution 24 PT 5.
So moved.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Cone,
Aye.
Commissioner Kay,
Aye.
Commissioner Williams,
Aye.
Commissioner Seymour,
Aye.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Chair McBride.
Aye. The motion is approved with all voting aye, and the resolution is approved. There being no other items on the agenda, it will be an open agenda. Susan, what do we have an open agenda?
Both of our lobbyists are on, this morning, and they have reports about, the fourth quarter activities, on their part. And it's, Chris, are you able to dial a speak? Are you driving or?
Oh, no, I can speak. Can you all hear me, Susan?
Yes.
We can, if you could turn up your volume just a little bit, Chris, that'd be helpful. Or
Yes. Is that a little better?
it
Mr.
is,
Chairman?
thank you. It is, thank you.
Good morning, everyone. This is Chris Johnson. I'm sorry I'm participating by phone. I'm out of my office today, so I can't join you by video on Zoom. But let me start by giving you all a brief update on things happening in Washington that could impact the port, and then I'll get into some specific things that we have been working on with Susan and her team. So in Washington, there are several departments and agencies, including the Department of Transportation, the Maritime Administration, and the Corps of Engineers, all of which, of course, are important to the operation of the port. Those agencies are all funded through midnight next Friday, January 19th. Congress is in session now. It is unclear what is going to happen and whether those agencies will be funded beyond next Friday or whether there'll be some sort of temporary shutdown of those agencies. We will see. It's very hard to predict, but I don't think anybody wants the government shut down, and so hopefully Congress will pass some sort of measures to keep those agencies open after next Friday. Additionally, the Department of Homeland Security and the Coast Guard, which is part of DHS, is funded through midnight on February 2nd. And again, we're hoping that Congress will pass and the president will sign legislation to keep the Coast Guard funded and operating. But again, it's unclear whether that will happen. So we will keep you all posted. I think you all have, over the last several months, heard several similar reports from me, and in each case, Congress has come together with the administration to fund these agencies. So we're hopeful that that will happen and we won't have any disruptions in our dealings with those agencies in the St. Louis area, and we'll keep you posted on that. Delving down to more specific things that we have been working on in St. Louis, the main focus over the last several months has in fact been the United States Coast Guard and ways that the port can cooperate more closely and regularly with the Coast Guard on various economic development initiatives that would be mutually beneficial to the Coast Guard and to the port. In that regard, Susan and Julie Murphy and I had dinner with Admiral David Barata, who is the Coast Guard Admiral overseeing or in command of the 8th Coast Guard District. That Coast Guard District is headquartered in New Orleans, but the Admiral's territory goes all the way up the Mississippi River, including St. Louis, all the way up to the Canadian border. And more importantly, next week on the 17th, we are having a meeting with the Admiral in New Orleans. Attendees will be Susan, Neil Richardson, Kurt Weigel, Julie Murphy, and me. And we will have at least an hour with the Admiral, during which Susan and the team will make a presentation to the Admiral on all the opportunities that we see along the riverfront in St. Louis to cooperate with the Coast Guard. There are opportunities for the Coast Guard to moor additional Coast Guard vessels in and around the port's facilities. There are possibilities of a Coast Guard recruitment center that could be put down on the riverfront on port property, and other initiatives that we want to discuss with him. We are and in so doing, we're coordinating with Captain Bender of the Coast Guard, who is the captain of the port overseeing St. Louis. But we have felt that it was important to talk to the Admiral and get his blessing, advice, and hopefully support on a number of these initiatives. So we'll have much more to report at the next board meeting as to how these discussions proceed with the Coast Guard. But we're optimistic that they will go well. I'll also say that Susan and I had a discussion with Admiral Linda Fagan, who is the Commandant of the Coast Guard, the first woman to be Commandant of the Coast Guard, or the head of any military service for that matter. In any event, she said that she would very much like to come visit St. Louis and see the port's operations, as well as what the Coast Guard is doing in conjunction with the port. So that could be a follow-on where we have the Commandant visiting St. Louis later in the year. So I'll stop there. Susan, feel free to add anything with regard to the Coast Guard that I've left out. And of course, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Chris. Susan, do you have anything to add?
No, I'm good. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you. And so, yeah, well, Chris, those sounds like great developments, and you know, we hope that you have good meetings with the Admiral next week, and anytime we can get the Commandant down to St. Louis, we would love to host her and assist in any of those efforts. Are there any questions from the commission members for Mr. Johnson? All right, thank you, Chris. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Barjay.
Yeah,
what
good
do you
morning,
have for us
everyone.
today?
Well, legislative session in Missouri kicked off last week on Wednesday. So we have been slowly getting the ball rolling here. There's been some House hearings this week, a few Senate hearings, but with the weather and just it being the second week, everything's kind of been a little slow so far. Legislative session will meet. They will be up here Monday through Thursday, all the way through May 17th, with the exception of a couple holidays and 1 week off in March for spring break. Everything since we met last time, we actually invited Representative Del Taylor down to meet with Susan and James. He got a little St. Louis Port Authority 101 and then went and did a tour. And Representative Taylor is a Democrat from the city of St. Louis, but it went very, very well to the point where I think Susan and I have had some conversations about inviting maybe the entire St. Louis region down either on a Friday during session or after session to kind of get a 101 on the Port Authority, especially since the way that the St. Louis Port Authority is set up and operates is a little different than the other port authorities across the state. So that was exciting. We really got Representative Taylor excited about helping the Port Authority out throughout the session. He's it's his second year, but freshman legislator who sits on budget, which is very important for us. And he has some really good relationships with the Republicans that oversee the budget right now. We are working on both some budgetary and legislative or statutory issues with Susan moving forward this year. I've told you this, guys, multiple times, but just so you remember the process in Missouri, our 13 state departments on the budget side of things put their requests out in October. MoDOT is where our funding is for ports. They put out their requests in October, and the funding line item that it's called the Waterways and Ports Trust Fund where our money comes through, they recommended a little under $12 million in there. That is where the budget sits right now. The governor will release his executive budget for fiscal year 25 on January 24th during his State of the State. From there, once he comes through it and releases what he is actually recommending, the House will take that up, make their changes, and then pass it over to the Senate. They will make their changes, figure out the difference, and then that has to be passed by I think it's May 10th. It's 1 week prior to session ending. We are working with the other ports to make sure that that number stays where it's at, or ideally increase it a little bit. Budget numbers for the state are kind of for the first time remaining flat, maybe increasing a little bit, but it's not the big windfalls that we've had in past years. So I don't think we'll see any really big increases in appropriations that are put out this year. I think I updated you all on the last call about a little issue that we were having last year. A bill passed at the end of session that creates the Waterways and Ports Trust Fund. It changes the way a little bit that we receive funding from the state. Typically, we would have a 1-year window to spend any money that would be appropriated to the port. This puts all the money into a fund and allows ports 2 years to spend that money, which is extremely helpful with water levels rising and issues with getting development up and moving. The way that language was written, though, because the St. Louis Port Authority does not own the land except or lease or hold any of the land in a long-term lease, we are a little fearful that we won't be able to access those monies. So we have introduced some bills in both the House and Senate with Representative Del Taylor, the same representative that came down to tour, and Senator Steve Roberts in the Senate. Both are Democrats from St. Louis. They've introduced legislation just to clarify that the St. Louis Port Authority does have access to those funds. We've been working with the Statewide Port Authority Association to make sure all the other ports are okay with what we're doing, and with the state administrator. And Susan, I always get his title wrong, but he administers within MoDOT the money for the ports, Levi Woods. We've been talking with both of them, making sure that everyone's okay with what we're doing, and no one from my conversations intentionally left out St. Louis from being able to access those funds. But we have 2 bills, one in the House, one in the Senate. At some point, we will start tagging that legislation onto anything and everything we can to make sure that we can get that passed this year. Unfortunately, with any election year, everyone's expectations of how many bills are going to pass is significantly lower than other years. I tend to be a little more optimistic, because sometimes these are the years where you actually get a bunch of stuff done when people are focused on the shiny objects. So I'm hopeful that we can get that done. If for some reason we can't, though, Susan and I have had a couple conversations about asking for a separate earmarked line item in the budget for the St. Louis Port Authority that is separate from that trust fund, accumulative money, just to make sure if the legislation doesn't pass, we are covered and we have some money to make sure that all the projects that you all approve continue to move forward. Besides that, it's still early in session and everything's just getting kicked off. If you guys have any questions for me about anything else going on, Susan, I don't think I missed anything, but please chime in if I missed anything big that we were supposed to be updating everyone on today.
No, you did good. Thank you.
I do have a question.
Yes.
Yes, you had said earlier in your report that monies that have been allocated in the past has not been allocated this year. If I'm understanding you correctly, can you explain to me why that has happened?
And I don't know what I was referring to, but I would say, so every year when a budget is appropriated, so like this coming year, we'll be working on the fiscal year 25 budget items. So they will work on when the money is actually appropriated. It won't be available until July of 2025 when those funds are actually available. But ideally, with this new port trust fund is, and I think this is what you're asking about, the money is appropriated into the big fund. When those monies are distributed out to each port, you only get, our appropriation allows for 1 year on anything that's appropriated in our state. So if you don't spend the money in that 1 year period, it has to go back into general revenue at the state. The new trust fund allows you 2 years to actually hold that money there so that you have more time to spend it. And Susan understands the timeline of how the money comes in and out substantially more than I do, just on port projects and how it takes a little longer to get that money done. And Commissioner Mason, I'm probably not answering your question because I don't know what I said that
Right.
that you're asking about, so I apologize.
No, it's okay. You made it sound like that in the past that there was more money allocated for whatever reason, like there was just more money given to us so we can do things. But this year, for some reason, as you, I think you stated, as in past, we're not getting as much money as we used to. So it just sounded like that there was a decrease in the budget. And
yes.
what caused that decrease?
I got you. So over the past probably 3 or 4 years, just the state's revenues have been dramatically increased through federal ARPA dollars coming in. Honestly, just revenues from the state from tax collection has been up quite a bit. We have in the coming years a couple big tax decreases that will be triggered, corporate tax decreases, a couple others, and a lot of the ARPA money has dwindled down. I think a lot of it has to be spent by the end of 24. So the big pot of money that we've been sitting on and this big windfall is no longer sitting there. So it's not doom and gloom and our revenues are dropping aggressively in Missouri, but we have been sitting pretty plush for a few years and everyone has been very used to that. We always talk about, there's been some very large appropriations made throughout the state. They made a $300 million appropriation to build a hospital in Kansas City, which you would never see the state do something like that. I mean, you see the I-70 massive appropriations that have been issued to expand the highway. So we've just been sitting on a lot more money than we have historically. And I think things are going to come back down to a normal time. And I think Susan, before I came on, you would know better. In the past, when money has been tight, that $12 million line item that gets distributed out to all ports, I am sure in the past when money was tight, that number has fluctuated quite a bit.
Correct.
So I don't think we're going to see that now that I'm saying this out loud, I need to knock on wood, but I don't think we're going to see that number drop this year. But in the coming years, as money gets a little tighter, we will have to work substantially harder to explain why we really need that money.
Yeah, if I could add 2 things, the ARPA money has to be spent by the end of 2026.
Okay.
And as Jackie was saying, currently there's 12 million proposed for all the Missouri Port Authorities collectively. And so the last year was about the same. A couple of years, like 10 years ago, it was 0. And then it's gone kind of up and up. And so it just varies on whatever the state's willing to appropriate to ports collectively. And then the ports divvied up amongst themselves. And so the 2 projects, the rail project and the demo project, each one of those come from that pot that all the ports got collectively. And that was our slice of those pies. So this year we should be at 12 million and hopefully like Jackie says, it won't decrease.
And I will say, and I think I think you all know this, but it was fascinating to me when I first started working with you all, the way that those monies are distributed. All of the ports get together and submit their projects to each other, and then they vote on them themselves, which ranks them, and that's how the money is actually distributed out, which I'm sure it has worked in the past. It's a very interesting way to do it, but I assume no one has caused or raised the alarm about it, and it's been working. So, but I also think I said because of the potential of not being able to access those funds, we are going to ask for a separate line item for St. Louis this year to make sure that we don't miss out on funds this year.
And I do have another, I guess, request. I know you, Chairman McBride, talked about someone from the Coast Guard coming to St. Louis, and then we could host them and kind of show them around. And then there's another person that he mentioned. Would the commissioners be invited to that as well? I guess that's for you, Susan.
Yeah, we don't, they could be, I don't know what that event would look like. If the captain of the port, we would talk to him, and then the commandant, we haven't even planned something, but yeah, that could happen. I don't know how we could work, Chris, do you want to jump in as to, how we might?
Sure.
have-
So we would absolutely work to include the commissioners and key folks from in and around St. Louis. My guess is if we had the commandant come, she would give us roughly half a day. And so we probably do multiple events. We might do a breakfast and then a tour of the port, and then a briefing of some sort. But that hasn't been determined yet because we want to go through the process with Admiral Barata, who is the admiral that has jurisdiction over St. Louis first. And the thought is we don't want to bring the commandant in until we've done a little bit more work with Admiral Barata, who of course reports up to her. But the point is, Susan and I spoke to her, and she immediately said that she would very much like to come to St. Louis. So we have the opportunity to go back to her when we're ready to have her come visit.
The reason why I brought that up, because if there's any questions that the captain or commandant would have historically about St. Louis, me, myself, a lifelong St. Louis, and even though I wasn't born here, but I was pretty much raised here. And if there was any history about the city that they would request, then maybe someone like myself could be able to provide that.
That would be terrific, and we would welcome that. And but I don't want to indicate that this visit is imminent because we have to go through the steps of dealing with some of the other key folks in the Coast Guard before we would have the commandant come visit. So I'm hoping it would happen during this calendar year, but I don't think it's going to happen in the next couple of months.
I'm just offering whatever assistance that I could provide, and maybe in future visits, if somebody just want to keep that under their hat for someone to visit, and whatever information that I could provide, be happy to do that.
Thank you.
Spectacular. Thank you so much.
May
Very
I ask a question? I guess Tanya's question is a segue to what I was going to ask you, Jackie. I would like to be part of that Port Authority Tutorial 101. Okay, I need to really learn more and possibly tour the riverfront. So just let me know. I know both, Dell, and I know Robert. So
Dell is one of, if you know Dell, he is one of my favorite people. He's like a very, very genuine person.
Yes.
But no, I will make sure if we get the whole St. Louis City, St. Louis County folks invited down, I would love any of you that would like to come join.
I just want to come to learn some more. I don't know whether I have anything to add to it. So,
and I am sure if that
clear.
is, if it's too long from now until we do that, I am sure Susan will be willing to give you a more in-depth thing as well. And to that point, the only other thing I was going to say, I've run into Commissioner Mason in the Capitol before, but if any of you are up in Jeff City on any in any capacity, please feel free to reach out to me. I will love to take you around or help you navigate the halls too, because sometimes it's a little confusing when you get in there.
And those tours are very helpful. That the Port Authority put together. I've met friends and I've had relationships with them and still have relationships with them from those tours, and they're very helpful. And as Jackie said, I have run into her, not figuratively, but probably almost did run into her. But yes.
Send you
I have
the PowerPoint that I showed Representative Taylor, and I can call you and talk to you about it, okay?
Who is that to? I didn't hear that.
Sorry, I'm saying, Lily, I can send you the PowerPoint that we showed to Representative Taylor that I
Oh.
prepared, and I can talk to you about it, okay?
Oh, I would love that. That would be great. I appreciate
Okay.
it. Thank you.
Sure, okay.
Thanks.
I only have a comment with the resolutions today. It seems like we are taking absolute full advantage of the grants that are available. I'm not certain that was always the case. Susan, I recall early meetings when I came aboard where we were shuffling funds to different years and possibly even leaving some money on the table. And so kudos to you. And I'm sure Jackie helps in that area as well. So it just feels different. I don't have any numbers, so anyway, those were big numbers that were in the resolutions today.
Yeah, thank you. That's the goal, is to upgrade all of our facilities and get more front commerce going.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Jackie, one other question. Do you lobby just only for St. Louis Port Authority, or are you representing all of the Missouri Port Authorities?
Just St. Louis Port Authority. The Missouri Port Authority Association has a separate lobbying entity. We work very well with them and work in tandem on a lot of things, like the big budget ask, but on separate legislative stuff like our bills or our separate line item that we'll ask for is just us that's working on that. In the past, they have a new lobbying team that just joined the state association, so I can't vouch for how well we'll work together now. I'm sure I know them well, so I'm sure it'll be fine. But in the past, everyone's worked pretty well together.
And how many Missouri Port Authorities are there? How many?
There's 16. I think there's 16.
16, okay.
And
Yeah.
I would say of those 16, probably four of them have their individual lobbyists, 4 or 5, like Kansas City does, Jefferson County does, St. Louis, obviously. Yeah, there's, yeah,
St. Charles, okay.
St. Charles, yeah.
Yeah, good to know. All right, thank you.
That's a good question.
All right. Well, anything else on open agenda, Susan?
No, I don't have anything. Thank you.
Anything else on open agenda from any of the other commissioners?
I just want to, I think I missed where we adopted the meeting minutes from last month. It says that I was absent. I was on the phone, but no one ever let me in to the panel. So yes, but I was at the meeting last month. So if that correction can be made to the meeting minutes.
I'm sorry we missed you. We'll double check next time to make sure we pick up anybody on the phone.
Yeah,
Janet,
every month I have problems logging in with that passcode that's there. It doesn't let me in. I put my email in. It says my email's not valid. So I don't know if we need to send out a new link or something, but it's every month. It's the same challenges.
yeah.
I was
I've
having
had the same
problems
issue,
with that.
Bethany.
I was having problems with that too. And then Zoom sends you out a link the day before each meeting. And that was the issue for me until I was able to really figure out or find it. I get so many emails, they get buried, and sometimes they can get buried. But Zoom does send you out another meeting request after Janet Harris sends you the packet. And then the following day, the Zoom request comes in. So if sometimes I can't find it, I just have to search Zoom and then it'll come up in my emails.
Yeah, I'll add that because I don't think I get them from Zoom. Because I just normally try to click the link that's in the packet because the one that's in my invite doesn't work. So I
Yeah,
try to click the one in the packet.
Yeah.
But
And that never works.
Yeah, I
That-
can try to add that feature from Zoom where it'll send me an update too. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, I was having that same problem and it is very frustrating. I know what you're going through until I started looking for. Commissioner K helped me with that one. He said, "Where's your Zoom link?" I'm like, "I don't know, where is it?" But it's there somewhere. And I found it.
And Janet, can you make the modification or edit that Commissioner Williams requested?
Sure.
Thank you. All right, is there anything else on open agenda? Hearing none, our next meeting is set for February 8, 2024 at 9 a.m. At this time, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move and Happy New Year's to everybody.
Thank you.
Indeed.
I said.
Moved and seconded by Commissioner Seymour. We are adjourned.